Today, I'm attempting to make slime with only expired ingredients. Let's get started. Stinks. Okay, so the first ingredient we're working with is this glue that I've had for years. I'm pretty sure I didn't even close the lid properly because there was some dirt in there and it had kind of gone all crusty inside as well, which is probably the reason it took me ages to get it out the bottle. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but the texture of this was very thick and kind of like not mixed together properly, and it was kind of just a bit rubbery. Now, I'm trying to use as many expired ingredients as I can for this slime, and one thing that I've never done in these videos is use an expired fragrance oil. I ended up choosing Fruity Rings because it was at the top of the pile, and honestly I feel like it would smell good, and I'll be real, it didn't smell any different to how it did when I first got it, but it did kind of react weirdly with the glue at first, but I don't know if that was the glue or the fragrance oil. It was a little bit stringy to mix in at first, but after a little bit of mixing it went smooth, and I figured it was probably time for the next ingredient. This is acrylic paint, and to be honest with you, I do not even know if this stuff expires, but I know that I've had this for a long time and I used to make slime with it. So I just squeezed as much as I could out of the kind of semi-dried up bottle of it and just tried to mix it into the slime. Now, what was a little bit strange is that when I added the fragrance oil, it kind of became a little bit stringy, but when I added this, it seemed to make it extra smooth until I activated it, and that's when things kind of went a little bit weird. When I'd add activator, the glue would turn instantly into slime and then quickly melt back to glue. I had to repeat the process of adding activator and mixing it maybe 3 or 4, 5 different times, but it was weird and definitely took a lot more activator than a normal slime would. This is usually if there's not a lot of PVA in the glue that the activator doesn't really have anything to activate, so maybe it being sat for a few years has changed the structure of the glue, so it's not as strong as it was. Or maybe it was the paint we added or the fragrance oil. That's kind of the tricky thing with these videos, is that I'm not sure which ingredient makes things go wrong, because they all have the potential to. However, after mixing it and kneading it for a while, the slime turned out so smooth and kind of had like this weird creaminess to it, like I'd added clay, but I hadn't. Now, I wanted to do a 2-part slime because I feel like the pink would just be a bit boring on its own, so I got a bowl and used the same bottle of glue to put some more in there. Along with that, I added another old fragrance oil that smelled like strawberries to keep the fruit theme, and added this technically not expired but slightly stale instant snow that was left over from a previous video. I mixed those all up and it kind of became like a little bit of a paste before I'd even added any activator, but once I added activator, it came together completely normally, so I'm guessing it must have been one of the other ingredients that caused it to melt. I was trying to achieve like a whipped cream look with this, and it wasn't really giving whipped cream, so I decided to add some clay to lighten it up a little bit and make it super fluffy. I feel like Daiso clay has the ability to make any slime feel like whipped cream just because it is so light and airy. Once that was mixed in, I had the two slimes together, and I feel like you might be able to guess what kind of theme I'm going for here. I put them both in a container side by side and swirled them and added this super cute little pink drink charm. Of course, I had to top it with some sprinkles just to be a little extra, and this was the result. A kind of strawberry frappuccino milkshake inspired slime. I feel like the two textures went together so well, and it was so satisfying to mix them together to create this super light and fluffy end result. And to be honest, I'm pretty impressed with how those ingredients actually work, because they have been sat around for a while, so it's nice to know they can still make a good slime. Okay, moving on to the next expired ingredient, we have this colored glue. This has probably been sat around for a little bit less time, but it was still pretty gunky because I didn't close the lid again by accident, and of course it's been sat around for ages. I didn't actually really know how much of this was usable because quite a lot of it was dried out, and when I tried to squeeze the container, nothing came out, so I ended up using some scissors and just cutting the bottle open. Using a spatula, I just scooped out the remains of the glue, and there actually was some in there, but not really enough to make a slime, so I ended up adding a little bit more of this glue, which has technically been sat for the same time but is in good condition. I mixed these two together and it kind of seemed like I was mixing paint in rather than glue because it was quite clumpy and did take a little while to mix in. But once it was in, I decided to add some pigment just as another expired ingredient because I don't know if this stuff actually expires, but I found this bag with the glue and it kind of brightened the color a little. I added a splash of activator and just mixed it in. It was a little bit tough to mix in, but clear slime or clear glue can be like that sometimes, so it really wasn't the end of the world. Although it was pretty easy to mix together, the end result was just a bit rubbery and I really didn't add that much activator, so I'm thinking it's probably the glue rather than me over activating it. So taking the rest of the leftover snow from the previous slime, I just dumped it on top and added some water. I did start with a spatula, but I eventually did go in with my hands just because it was a little too hard to mix in, and after a pretty long time of mixing, it did form a cloud slime, and it was actually really good. It was super fluffy and it was a little bit bit rubbery still, but considering it was made from that old glue, I'm pretty impressed. It was super fluffy and it drizzled really well. The only thing I did not like though is that I forgot to add a fragrance to it, and I guess I could have still added one now, but I just forgot when I was filming. Of course I had to put it in a fresh container and swirl it around the top to make it look super nice. And while rooting through the boxes of old ingredients, I found these super cute moon charms and then added some of these moon Fimos along with some of these sprinkles. I know I'm saying this again, but I am really impressed with how this one turned out, and I just think the combination of charms and sprinkles makes it look super cute. And it drizzles surprisingly well for something that's still a little bit rubbery. Now, I don't know if this one counts as an expired ingredient because I don't actually know when it was from or what it is. I'm pretty sure it was glue, but I just found it amongst the box of other slime ingredients that have been sat around for ages and thought I could try and use it in the video. Along with this, there was this green bottle, which I think is actually soap that I decanted into something, but I just added a splash. I mixed this together and it came together pretty normally. It was quite watery, but I wasn't worried about that because when I add activator, it should thicken up, but it just looked a little bit plain and a little bit boring. So I decided to spice things up a little bit. I'd add some glitter to it. This just made it 10 times prettier, and so I just activated it from there. Now, everything seemed to be going fine, and it did kind of come together normally, apart from I had mixed it for over half an hour at this point and it still just wasn't coming together. So I decided to just leave it in a container and see what would happen if I'd leave it. Sometimes these things just fix themselves and they just need to sit for a little bit to kind of mix. So I sealed it with some cling film and left it for about a week. Now, when I say I was so excited to open this up, I was so excited because I could see that it had gone crystal clear and it just looked like it had almost changed completely and was this beautiful, thick, kind of clear texture. However, although very thick and also clear and pretty, it just was a little bit too thick. Almost as if it had kind of rubberized and dried out. I noticed the more I played with it, the kind of more like a bouncy ball it was rather than slime, because when I'd stretch it and pull it, it would kind of just snap. This wasn't really the end result I wanted, and I was a little bit annoyed because it really was just falling apart. So I knew I had to do something else about this because I did not want to leave it like this. Now, because it was quite watery already, I didn't want to add any more activator or water to it, so I ended up adding some glue, because that's the only thing I could really think of that would fix this. I ended up just going in with my gloves because I knew that a spatula wouldn't be strong enough to mix this in, and I also knew it would take a while and probably be quicker and easier with my gloves. I only added a little bit of glue to start with just to see how it would react to it, and it seemed to sort of melt it down, but not enough, so I did end up having to add more glue. I just mixed this in again, and finally we had something that actually stretched. Now, because I'd mixed it for so long, it was no longer clear, but at least it was stretchy and playable. It felt really nice. However, I didn't want to leave it just like this because I thought it was a little bit boring. So to spice things up, I used some plastic snow and put it into the same bowl. I had to split the slime in two because there was just too much, and I mixed it into the snow. Sometimes snow can be a bit weird with certain types of glue and not stick into it, but luckily this went in super easily and it made the perfect crunchy but also kind of soft texture. I knew I wanted to do a two-tone slime, so I split this in two again and dyed one side blue and one side this neon green, and I have to say this color combination goes together so well. I pushed them together again and put them into a new container, swirled it about, and then chose this giant lime charm along with this kind of stingray creature. I think it's a stingray, but let me know in the comments if it is. I finished it off with some sprinkles, and this was the final result. I love how these colors go together, and I think the charms complement it really well. The texture of this was great, and I had so much fun mixing the colors together because it was just so satisfying. I have to say, out of all three of the slimes we've made today from expired ingredients, I think this one's probably my favorite, considering I literally wasn't sure if it was glue, and I wasn't even sure if that green liquid was soap. It turned out pretty well, even though it did take the longest. Well, I had so much fun using these expired ingredients to create such awesome slimes. I'm always so impressed with how sometimes these ingredients may be old, but can create something brand new. Unfortunately, it's the end of the video, but if you like videos like these, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Until the next one, I'll see you guys later.